Well, thank you, Mark, and thank you all for being here. And Lindsay, thank you for the bracelets. Given the theme of today's policy sessions, one can look at the title of my talk, even though it's missing a key word, precisely what it is I'm going to talk about. But consider the title, if you will, minus the lens of education. What choice can do in West Virginia. Well, choice does a lot here, didn't you know? It does it every day. It's doing it right now. People use choice in deciding what clothes to buy, what shows to watch on TV, and what to have for dinner. More critically, people choose what colleges to attend, what church to join, or what home or car they'll buy. And oftentimes, painfully, people choose what medical service to have, what doctors to go see, or what nursing homes you might suggest for their loved ones. I chose to be with you here today. You, I hope, will choose to stay and ask really easy questions. This, after all, is the American way. We are free. It's the West Virginian way, according to your state motto, Mountaineers are always free. So if choice is such a commonplace thing here in West Virginia, why then is school choice practically non-existent? Why doesn't the state allow every parent a choice with the public funds that are used for their child's education? See, to me, school choice is a pretty straightforward thing. Inherent in the belief is the idea that people have the the dignity to make decisions for themselves, just like in everything else I just named off. And with those decisions, free people would influence and direct many of the changes that policy wants, politicians, and bureaucrats so often concern themselves with today in our public schools. Don't think it's possible? Well, I can tell you right now that the things on the shelves at your local store didn't get there thanks to some legislative order. They came through consumers demanding it. On the other hand, the things happening to and in our public schools are not determined by consumers, students and parents, or even producers, principals and teachers, but most often by people here in Charleston. Where are the parents in this room? Where are the parents in this process? Are parents the ones saying we need to fire and evaluate teachers? Are parents the ones calling for curriculum changes? Are parents the ones asking schools to become charters? Now that's not to say firing bad teachers and evaluating all teachers and stronger curriculum and charter schools are bad things. They're not. But I can tell you right now that if your state's education system were one in which parents had a voice and the power to shop for schools, those very things would have happened long ago. What can school choice do in West Virginia? Well, I would ask your constituents. Ask parents in your districts. Hey, if you could choose how and where your child were educated, what would you choose? That will give you an idea. That's how Milton Friedman, free market economist, saw education when he first proposed the idea of school choice nearly 55 years ago. Separate government's running of schools, he said, by letting parents choose their schools rather than assign them by zip code. If this state had school choice, you can anticipate 5 things that would likely result. Improved academics, as Lindsay pointed out, fiscal savings, higher satisfaction rates among participants, bipartisan political coalitions, and a 5th thing I'll hold on to in the end. Now, school choice can be implemented in 2 different ways, through vouchers and through tax credit scholarship programs. Currently, this is generally speaking, of course, the funding and operating of public education is fairly straightforward, as you know. Taxpayers provide revenue to government, government distributes revenue to districts and schools, and students attend those schools based on where they live. Now, residents can send their kids to private schools, mind you, but they're then paying twice for education, once to support their local public school and another time to pay for private school tuition. Now, under a voucher model, government still collects taxes for education, but rather than those funds going directly to districts and schools, the funds go to parents who can then decide where and how their child is educated. They can send their child to the school they're in now. They could use the voucher to homeschool their child, to send them to a private school, enroll them in a virtual program, to hire a personal tutor, and so on. But it must be used for educational purposes. Now, tax credit scholarship programs do essentially the same thing, but they have a different implementation process. These programs allow individual and corporate taxpayers to donate to what are called scholarship granting organizations or school tuition organizations. These are nonprofits that distribute scholarships to students, and the taxpayers that donate to these nonprofits can then claim a tax credit for their donations. So basically what you're doing is you're removing government almost entirely from the scholarship distribution process. And I must note that both programs have government oversight to ensure discrimination laws aren't broken, that private schools are credible and stable institutions, and that tax dollars are handled effectively. That being said, the concept of these programs is really not complicated. It's certainly no more complicated than the current way we fund and run public education. After all, we don't set up government-run grocery stores for food stamp recipients, do we? Those are vouchers. Why can Pell Grants be used at private colleges, including religious schools? They're vouchers. Why can stimulus checks and tax rebates, also vouchers, be used however and wherever? And to top it off, the school choice programs in place across the country, as Lindsay pointed out, do work. The facts prove it. Today, there are 14 voucher programs in 10 states and Washington, D.C. that impact more than 80,000 students. And there are 9 tax credit scholarship programs in 7 states that impact more than 100,000 students. Now, the types and size of these programs vary state to state. You have voucher programs for students in failing schools, vouchers for students with special needs, and vouchers for low-income students. And then you have tax credit scholarship programs for students with special needs, students in foster care, and those from low-income families. So are these programs appropriate for West Virginia? Well, that's a decision you all have to make. But know that 2 of your neighbors made that choice long ago, and it's working out pretty well for their students. Ohio provides vouchers to children with autism, to students from low-income families in Cleveland, and to students statewide who are in failing schools. Well, people don't want school choice, do they? That's what the opponents say. That's not what the polls say. Well, polls aren't facts. Well, fine, let's look at the facts. This year, the number of requests for vouchers in one of Ohio's programs exceeded the number of vouchers available. Families not too far from here clearly want choice. The same goes for families in Pennsylvania who cheered when its tax credit scholarship program was not cut in this year's budget. And get a load of this, if all 44,000 students in that program would re-enter the public school system, it would cost Pennsylvania taxpayers an additional $531 million per year. How do school choice programs save so much money? Well, think about this. Oklahoma, as Lindsay pointed out, just adopted a scholarship program for students with special needs. The voucher amount is worth either the state and local dollars currently attached to that child or private school tuition, whichever is less. So under the program, the state is guaranteed either fiscal neutrality or fiscal savings. That was one reason why Milton Friedman proposed the idea of school choice. It saves money. After all, competition we know drives prices down, but it also drives quality up. If a school students are free to leave, then schools will make darn sure their needs are being met so they don't lose their business. And that's also why Milton proposed school choice, because he knew it would satisfy individuals' unique needs by allowing them to shop for the education that's best for them. Now, because Lindsay already covered it, I'm going to skip school choice's effect on academic quality, and then she covered the satisfaction rates of the McKay Scholarship Program, so I'll skip that too. But you know, the satisfaction rates are a very important thing because, in my opinion, they actually reveal more about school choice's success. Because for some families, academic performance isn't everything, and that's all right.